Hello everyone, how are you doing? In this video, we will work on creating something called heartbeat. So this is like a mechanism for our application, for the server side and for the client side, to know that they are still connected to each other. So in the end of the day, what we will want to achieve is we want to let other instances of our application know that some other instance has disconnected, because currently we don't know it. So the server only knows it when it tries to actually send the message, right? And you want to do it earlier if possible. So we'll implement this kind of mechanism so that we know that, okay, this is still valid. Okay, so let's start it. Let's come in here into our backend side, and here in this WSS, let's go in here and let's create a function here. So what it will be, let's call it ping, and this ping will be an interval. Now this interval takes a callback, and what set interval allows us to do, it allows us to call a function every time period, right? So we'll define a function. This will be our callback, and then we'll define a time period. And then every period, the backend side will call all the clients. And if the message cannot be delivered, then we'll know that, okay, a client has disconnected, and we should let all other clients know that one of the clients has disconnected. Okay, so what we need to do is, currently we said that we want to send a message to all the clients. So let's create this mechanism or this loop as we did right here. However, here we'll not only send a message, so we will send a message here, and the message will have the following parameters. So it will only have a type, and let's call it heartbeat. But also it will check if for a particular client the ready state. So the ready state just keeps the state of the WebSocket. It goes from 1 to 3, I believe, where 1 is like open, active, and 3 is closed. So if it's not equal to 1, then what we should do is we should call client.close. So we should close the connection, and we should also send a message to all the clients. Let's pass in clients here, clients, and the message should be the following. Let's go, for now, let's do a type of disconnect. And that's it. We'll later on add some additional things here, so we'll also add the support for the username. And now we need to find this right here, and we need to define the time period. So let's say this is in milliseconds, let's say 1000, so 1 millisecond times 5, so that we know that it is 5 milliseconds here. Okay, so this is our backend mechanism. It will call all the instances of the application every 5 seconds with a message. So it will just send a message with type disconnect. Sorry, not type disconnect, but type heartbeat. If one of the clients disconnects, then it will send a disconnect message. Okay, let's now move to our front end part, and let's define here a handler for this type of message. What we want to do first is, we are currently supporting from the backend, I think, 2 or 3 types of messages. We are supporting a message with a type connect. We are supporting, connect is from the front end to the backend. And at the backend, what it can send is, it can send us a message type. This is where we have a message, or it can send us the heartbeat. Yes, and also connect, sorry, the connect all. So what we want to do is, we want to first, on our front end, we want to differentiate between the different types of messages that we have. And we currently have a connect message type, we have a message type, and we have this heartbeat, and also disconnect. Okay, so we go to our front-end part, and when we get a message, we are basically here. So now what we have to do is after we parse the message, because now we can access the data of the message, we have to basically check what type are we currently processing. So if we have message.type message, let's for now say received message type, and then also log the contents. I believe message.body it was. Let's quickly check that. Yeah, so here we see it, message.body. So type message we already have, and now let's go also to our type connect. So when we will have type connect here, so basically else if message.type equals, but here we should do it 3 times. Okay, so if it equals connect, we want to do, for now we'll just say received connect message, so that we just know where we should create the handlers. Okay, and we also can have a message.type equals disconnect. This is what we defined. So basically now we want to say that received disconnect. Of course, later on we'll change it. We are doing it just for now. Okay. So not like this, but like this. So basically here message type, and here we'll say heartbeat. This will be very important. So here define heartbeat handler, and then else we receive something that we are not handling. We'll just cancel that error. We'll say unknown message type. Okay, but now we have said here that we have to define the heartbeat. So let's currently do it. So in order to define this function, let's go down here. What we will need to do, or what the function will need to do. It will actually be a cool trick, I think. What we will do is we will set a timeout that will actually tell us that we have been disconnected from the server. And what the function call will do is it will reset the timeout. So it will be like a ticking bomb, right? So we are starting it, and then we have a certain time. If nothing happens, if we don't stop the timeout, so the countdown, it will just disconnect us, right? So it will not disconnect us, but it will just tell us, okay, you have been disconnected. So what we first should do is we should create this timeout. So let's say this, and I will be using this because I will call this on the WebSocket directly. So basically this dot, let's say ping timeout, and I will set the timeout. For this we have a function set timeout function. This function takes a callback, and if the time period is reached, for now what we'll do is we'll just console error, you have been disconnected. And what we need to do is now we need to define a time in which it will happen. So it's once again in milliseconds, so it's 1000, and now we have it in seconds. So I would say that this has to correspond to the time that we used here. So here we used 5 seconds. So now let's use maybe 2 times that plus like a 2000 for possible like latency. So basically here, if we don't get this or don't receive the message twice, this is the time period that we've specified, this timeout will be not canceled and not canceled. We now need to say clear timeout. This dot ping timeout. So basically, if you now take a look what's happening, every time this function is called, we first clear the timeout if it exists, and then set a new timeout, right? So it's like never-ending story of timeouts. Okay, so let's go up here when we have the WS. Let's say, or maybe let's actually do it in the connect to WebSockets. Let's here do it. So ws.heartbeat is equal to a heartbeat, and heart, I think I made a typo, heartbeat. Okay, and now what we can do up here, we can say that just ws.heartbeat. Okay, and we can also say this in this heartbeat handler. So we can say also ws heartbeat. So again. So basically, every time we receive a message with a type heartbeat, which should be every 5 seconds, we will call the heartbeat function. Okay, let's check. Maybe I will just put here a console.log saying received heartbeat. Heartbeat, I can't spell it. And let's quickly check if this works. So here I will save this part, I will refresh this, and I will refresh this. And we have an unknown message type right here. However, here we are currently seeing that we are receiving heartbeats. You can see that it is increasing every 5 seconds. And now what we can do is I can turn off the server here, so we are no longer receiving the heartbeats, and we should shortly receive here an error that we have been disconnected. Exactly, but let's investigate this unknown message type, because here we perhaps are not handling properly something that we are sending from the backend. And our unknown message type is because here we have this part, and we are just sending a message where we have here. So here we just had the type of response, and this is not what we want to have right now. Okay, that's good. So let's currently we have defined the heartbeat. We now know that it is working. So now we can start to define some actual things that will be happening in our application, because for now we are just printing everything to the console. So basically, let's go to our client.html file. And here what we'll actually need to start doing is we'll need to, for example, start adding the messages that we are receiving. So not the heartbeat messages, but if I send something here, let's do a test. Okay, currently the server is off, so the connection is closed. So if I send something here, then it should appear also in the other instances of the application. And for that, we need to actually create a function that will add the message received to the HTML. So in our HTML file, what we want to do is we want to come in here. So far, we have this form here. So let's currently add a div here. And this div will have a class of, let's say, box chat messages. And now inside this, let's make use of something called a template. So a template is just an HTML tag that can then later on be used in the JavaScript to easily generate like pieces of HTML. So anything that we create inside here, we know will not be rendered on the page immediately. So let's say class, and let's call it chat message. So this chat message will then get in JavaScript, and we will just duplicate it. And let's just say this is a dummy chat message. And now you can see that if I save this and I have refreshed the application here on the right hand side, by the way, I haven't started. So I just run node1 server.js, and this serves our HTML file. So now you can see that it's not, the text here is not appearing, while if I was to comment out this template, it would appear here. Okay, so let's add a template back. Let's give an ID to this template. So let's say ID template chat, oops, let's do an uppercase chat message. Okay, that's perfect. And That's actually everything except for maybe here in this box outer username. Or let's make an additional div here. Let's give it a class of box title. And here let's make, let's say maybe currently in chat. So this will basically create our box that will be right next to our messages and where we'll display who is currently connected. So currently in the chat. And we need an additional div. So we have created the title, and now here we'll create also a div where we'll have the usernames. So when we will add a username, somebody that will connect, and we'll add a username support in a second. This is where these usernames will be added. Okay, that's fine. I think currently we have enough. So we have what the most important thing. We have our box for chat messages and we have our box for the usernames. So now we can start adding a support for this. So for the usernames, what we still need, right, is we need some way for the user to insert their username. So what we need to do is, or rather what we can do many things. This can be done in many ways. However, one of the most common ways I think is that we now just set up something called a dialog box. So basically right here, let's say dialog, and I will, in the comments, I will link to a Kevin Powell's video on dialog, and I think that's a very cool video. I would highly encourage you to use it. And therefore I will not go into that many details how exactly this works. But basically what it will allow us to do is it will allow us to create this kind of pop-up, right? When we need something to pop up. And then when a user enters this our page, the first thing they will see is that pop-up that will just say, okay, insert your username here. Let's give it a class of model. And let's give it an ID of model. And inside this model, we want to have a form. And this form will have an input. That will be a class of input text, type text. Let's maybe move that to two new lines. We'll also have a name, and here the name will be username. We'll have an ID of username, and we'll have a placeholder that will say insert your username. And that will be, let's say that it's required. We'll just use the HTML element. It's not the best. We'll also do a check in our JavaScript function. And then the form, okay, let's close it right here. It's also a button. And the button will be of a class, let's say button, just button. Maybe we'll style that a little bit more later. And we'll have a type of submit. It's not necessary. If there's only one button, it automatically becomes the submit button. And let's just say submit inside here. And on the form itself, let's do an ID maybe. Oops, ID. This will be a form username. And let's say method dialog. Therefore, if we specify method dialog, the form is also submitted when the model is closed. Or sorry, the other way around. So the form will be the dialog will be closed when the form is submitted. But this is it for our HTML. Let's save, let's refresh here. And currently we don't see this dialog. So we could see it if we just set here open, then we would get a pop-up. However, this would not be grayed out. We will actually open this model with an open model method on this dialog inside our JavaScript code. But okay, for now we have the basic HTML ready without any styles yet, but we will get to that later. Let's now get into our JavaScript file and let's generate, or let's write some code that will actually add the HTML messages and that will add the usernames. Let's then go to our script.js. Let's here go to the top. And what we want to do first is we want to use our dialog, or we want to use the form that we have in our dialog to actually get the username. So let's say const model, and here we'll get the model. So we say document.querySelector, And then here I like using the query selector. So here you just can select by a class by using a dot, or you can also select by an ID by saying by using hashtag. So we just say hashtag model, and here we'll get our element model, and also let's get the form that we have there. So form username is equal to document dot query selector. Query selector, and here we do form username. I believe this is the ID that we have here. Let's quickly check that. So here we have the form username, and here we have the ID model. Okay, now that we have that, let's do form username dot add event listener, and we want to listen for a submit event. And when the event is submitted, we want to call a callback function. And what we want to do is first we want to prevent the default. So we want to prevent the form submission. Then we want to get the form data in the following way. So we initialize a form data class where we put the form element, and then we get our username out of it. So const username equals form data dot get username. And then we will close our model. That will be open. Close. We'll open it in a second. And then only then we'll connect to our WebSockets with the username that we have here. So now let's actually also here, when we define the make WebSockets function, let's also add an argument, username. And what we can do now is in the connect message right here, let's bring this to a new line. Let's put this into here. And here what we can do is we can say comma and then say username is equal to username. So this once again is just a shorthand for like something like this, right? So this is an equivalent of this. Oops. Okay. So here we have this. We are currently using our username right here. And we also have our model. And now, still, if I open this application, I believe currently I will not see anything here exactly, because what we need to do is we need to say model.show model. And now, if I refresh, you can see that we have our model here. So it has the username right here, and it also has the background is a little bit grayed out. So we'll work on the styles. We'll actually remove everything. So we'll make it completely white so that you can only see the insert your username. Let's make a test here. So we have, and currently let's inspect our console here. And we see that the WebSocket connection failed because our application is not currently running. So let's start our WebSocket server. Let's refresh it here. Once again, we get this. Let's say maybe test. And we can see that currently we have a message which has the username test in the server. And here we can see our heartbeat working. That's perfect. Okay, so for now, let's remove this because this will actually bother us a little bit. Let's here where we are trying to get the username instead of this. Let's actually say const username equals test user, so that we do not have to, every time we want to refresh this application, we do not have to actually insert the username, and it's actually working with our username mechanism. We'll of course remove that later on. Okay, so this is our username working. Now, what we want to have is we want to have a mechanism that displays our messages. So basically what we need to do is we need to write a new function that will add the messages that we are getting to HTML. So let's write a function. Let's call it maybe add message. And what it will take as an argument. So it will take a message username. It will take a message body. And it will take a message color. So here, let's first start with some checks. So if we do not have a message username, what we want to do is we want to end the function by saying return, and then we want to cancel error we want to say that username is missing from a message. So then if we do not have a message body, we want to do basically the same thing. Return. Here we can use a guard clause, of course, so basically we can put this return on the same line here without the parentheses. However, or the brackets. However, I just don't have that much space if I want to still have to have the window open here. So here we want to cancel that error. Body is missing from a message. And here, if we don't have a message color, I think here I made a small typo. If we don't have a message color, let's also say that let's return cancel.error error color is missing from message. Okay, now that we have checked that we have our inputs, let's actually retrieve our template first. So if you remember, we have the template that we will now use. Let's also use our query selector. And I believe we called it template chat message. We also have a message box. So if you remember, we created there a div that is that has a class of box chat messages. Let's maybe quickly verify that. So basically we are looking for box chat messages exactly here. And here we have the template inside. So here we will be adding the messages. Okay, let's go back. So what we want to do is now that we have these, we want to grab our template. So we want to make use of it. So we say new message is equal to template.content.first element child dot. We want to clone the node and we want to say true. So now we have the new message basically. We have just created it. And now we say new message dot we'll use inner HTML. And the inner HTML, what it will be, it will be a span that will have a class of bold. So basically we have a span that will have a class of bold, and we'll define the class later on. And then what we want to do is we want to say here message username. Because what we want to say is that, okay, we first want to have the bolded username of the user. So here let's close the span. And then let's put a colon here and let's say message body. And that's it. Okay. So we have our message, and then we want to have also new message dot style dot background color equals, and here I would say let's use the HSL. So we say HSL, and then we open brackets and we say message color. So it will be from 1 to 360. And then we say, for example, 50%, 50%. So this will just generate for us a color using the HSL. And then we just say message box or message box dot append child message box, this one, dot append child, and we just say new message. Okay, and now you might ask yourself, where is this message color coming from? And this is actually a good question. We need to add support for this on the backend. So let's currently do that. Let's go to our app. Let's go to the place where we create the user, which is our create user function, create new client, sorry. And in the create new client, we want to, we already have color. Okay, that's good. So we already have the color in the client. So we now have to pass the color to our front-end application. So when we are sending the message, so basically here we are sending the message with a type message, and we already have message.color, so we're already passing the message to our front end. That's good. So we can now go back to our front end. We can grab the add-message function, and when we receive a type of message equals message, we no longer have to just print it. What we can do is now we can just say message.username. And are we also passing the username here? Let me go ahead and check it here. We are sending this. So we have when we say in the message, I believe we are only passing the color currently. Okay, so let's also pass in the username here. To pass the message, we actually need to go back to our front end, to the place where we created the message, and it's right here. And now, because we now have this username argument, what we have is we have an access to our username variable right here in all the functions. So what we can just do is where we send the chat message, we can just add here the username. So now our username will be forwarded here to our backend. So it will, in this message here, will contain the username key. So now the username key will be sent to all the clients. Therefore, we can go back to our front end. And here in the add message, we can just use message.username. And here we can just say message.body. This should be how we actually create it here. Let's go here. Yeah, exactly, message.body. And then the only thing is we need to have the thing that we generate on the backend, which is message.color. And let's go just see if yeah, exactly. Here we add the color key to our message. Okay, that's cool. So what should already be happening is that if we send a message, let's refresh it on the right-hand side. Let's open the console. Let's go right here to the console. Let's refresh it and let's say test. Okay, nothing happened. And nothing happened because currently here what we need to do is we need to, for now, take it out of the event listener because we are not submitting the form. We will arrange that later on. So here now we have a connect from the test user. That's good. Let's currently try to send us a text message. Okay. So it seems like an error with our template. And I think the issue is here, it should be content, not text content. Okay, let's refresh, let's say test. And here we see that we were able to send the message. Now I'll pull up a second window here. There is the second window. Let's say test here, and it's also displayed here. Let's say test 2, and it's displayed here. Okay, fantastic. So in this video, I think we have made good progress. We have modified our HTML file. We have added the heartbeat functionality, and we now can send messages, and we can see which user has sent them. And we also support now different usernames, although for the testing, we are just using test user. Okay, so for this video, this is it. I believe in the next video we'll be coming to a close, so we'll definitely implement then the functionality so that we see which user is connected, which user is disconnected, and we'll also implement the notifications. And then I believe after that, the only thing that will be left is to add a little bit of CSS so that it looks somewhat a little bit better than it does right now. And this will be a close of our short series with a chat application. But there are still, I think, 2 episodes to go. But for now, I would like to thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Now, before we close the video, I have one more thing that I actually forgot to change. So I did it a little bit incorrect on purpose, and then I forgot to change, and then I already recalled it when I was editing the video. So I'm recording this a little bit post factum. But what I did here, especially if we take a look here, here, and here, and I checked the arguments here. And you in general should not check the arguments like that. Why? Because here we have a good example, right? If basically this message username was a 0, this would be a true, and this would return an error. Now, in our case of our application, this is not so critical, because if you notice here, this is false still, right? So if this is string, this is fine, this is false. However, as a general rule, you should not check your arguments like this. You should rather say strictly equal undefined, and then you are it's very clear what you are checking here. And the same check we can make right here. And in any other function, wherever we want to actually check our username, right? So here we should also have an if statement, and then if username is equal to undefined, undefined, if I could spell only, we will return as a console.error username is needed to connect to Websockets. Right, so basically, when you are validating your inputs, be clear about what you are validating. Don't use the exclamation mark. This is the one thing. And let's maybe also make the same changes on our backend here, right? So here we would not use something like this, but we would rather say false. And here we would say, that the message equals strictly equals undefined. Let's copy this part. Let's also say it here. Let's remove this thing. And here we should be fine. Okay, now one more thing. The one more thing is how we generated our chat message. We have done it using inner HTML. And as a general rule, in order not to get into too many details, you should avoid using inner HTML because it allows somebody to inject code and execute a JavaScript code with this, right? So here, probably, if we tried to do a script tag and then inside the script, for example, on error, we could actually generate an error. And this is just susceptible. This makes our website vulnerable to something called cross-site scripting, to exploitation in general. And we want to avoid that. Now, what we can do is we can just say, we can create a span element. We can say document.create element, span. We want the span.text content, and instead of inner HTML, we will use text content to be our message username. And then we want the class list of the span. To the class list, we want to add bold. And then we want to append it to our new message. So append child, and then span. And we want to create a message, the text, right? Because we have the span and then we have the text node. So we say const message text, message text equals document.create text node. And here we say colon and then string interpolation message body. Okay, and then we say new message dot append child message text. So this will be appended after our span, and then we are fine. So then basically we have we need to make a slight change. So here we need to say this is not necessary for us, and then here we have the background color and the append child. Okay, let's save it now. Let's refresh it here. Refresh. Let's test if our application still works. It doesn't because our server is not running, and we need to run our server once again. Okay, so now it's running. Let's say test, and now we have received the message. Okay, this is important because we changed the way we are using our template, and we are not using inner HTML anymore. Now this dummy message that we have here appeared. Let's remove it, and this should be fine. Okay, this is fine. Good. So This is the actual ending of the video. So I think we have made a good progress right now. So we have the most important function of our application. So we actually can send messages from one client to the other. So in the next video, we will work on the usernames so that we can see who is in the chat. We'll also work on the notifications. And then I think in the next video, so in the video after that, we will work on the CSS for application just to make it work, look a little bit more enjoyable. But for now, I would like to thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, if you have some ideas for the next video, please leave a comment, leave a like button, or click a like button, and I will see you in the next video.